Funny how people think opportunities come wrapped in comfort, like gifts waiting politely on the doorstep. No, the real ones come disguised, messy, risky, dangerous. And here's the catch. You miss them. You don't just lose a moment. You lose everything that could have grown from it. That's the trap. One skipped choice, one ignored door, one chance tossed aside, because it looked inconvenient, and suddenly the whole future starts collapsing. You think you're safe by passing it up, but really, you've just signed away the very thing you were desperate to keep. Skip chances rewrite your future. People think choices are small, like pebbles tossed into a river. They think one skipped moment, one avoided risk, one ignored voice doesn't matter. But every pebble changes the flow. Every decision redirects the current. And when you skip the chance that was meant for you, you don't just avoid a moment. You rewrite the entire map of your life. The future you could have had slips away, and you don't even notice until it's too late. That's the cruel part. You think you're safe. You think you're steady. But the bridge you refuse to cross is the one that would have led you to everything. Most people don't realize how fragile destiny is. They think it's bulletproof, untouchable, guaranteed. But destiny isn't some unbreakable law. It's a door that opens when you obey the call. Miss it and it closes, maybe forever. Maybe it shifts into a darker hallway. One that costs twice as much, one that breaks twice as hard. That's the danger of skipping chances. You gamble with a future you can't get back. And you don't just lose a step. You lose a lifetime built on what that step would have unlocked. Skipped chances don't announce themselves. They don't scream, "This is it." They arrive quietly, wrapped in uncertainty, hidden in inconvenience, disguised as risk. And that's why people miss them. They wait for something obvious, something easy, something painted in neon lights. But the biggest doors never look like doors. They look like problems, like sacrifices, like work. And people step over them. Blind, thinking they're being wise, thinking they're being cautious, when really they're trading their own future for the illusion of safety. The tragedy is you rarely feel the weight of a missed chance in the moment. It feels harmless, like nothing happened. But days pass, years pass, and slowly the emptiness creeps in. The dream never shows up. The breakthrough never comes. The person you were supposed to become never arrives. And you wonder why. You wonder where it all went wrong. But the truth is simple. You skipped the chance, and the chance carried the rest of your life with it. Every skipped chance plants regret like a seed. At first, you don't notice it, but over time it grows. It whispers when you're alone. It scratches when you're quiet. It shows you glimpses of the life you could have had. And regret is the heaviest chain of all, because you can't fight it. You can't undo it. You can't go back. All you can do is feel it tighten every time you remember the door you walked past. People love to say, if it's meant to be, it'll come back. That's the lie they tell themselves to feel better about skipping the hard choice. But not every door opens twice. Some slam shut forever. Some were only meant for that exact moment, and once the time passes, so does the opportunity. That's why the warning always comes with urgency. Because skipping isn't harmless. It's fatal to the future that was supposed to be yours. And it doesn't stop at you. When you skip your chance, it ripples into everyone connected to you. The people you were supposed to help, the lives you were supposed to touch, the future you were meant to change. They all pay for your hesitation. One skipped chance doesn't just rewrite your story, it rewrites theirs. And that weight doesn't disappear. It sits there, waiting for you to admit the truth. You didn't just lose a moment. You lost everything that moment carried. Skip chances rewrite your future because they were never small. They were seeds meant to grow into forests, sparks meant to burn into fire, doors meant to open into kingdoms. And when you ignore them, you don't just lose a seed, you lose the forest. You don't just lose a spark, you lose the fire. You don't just lose a door, you lose the world behind it. And the worst part, most people don't realize what they've thrown away until they're left standing in the ruins of the life they settled for. Fear loves to dress itself up in fancy clothes. It puts on a suit, calls itself logic, calls itself caution, even whispers that it's wisdom. You see it standing there, calm, composed, pretending it's just looking out for you. But if you tear off the mask, if you peel back the smile, you find trembling hands and shaking bones, because underneath it all, it's just fear, ugly, weak, desperate to keep you exactly where you are. And people fall for it every single time. They let it sit at the head of the table, let it call the shots, let it decide who they are and what they deserve. They don't realize that fear doesn't actually stop danger. It creates it. Because while you sit still, while you back away, while you wait for some perfect moment that never comes, the world moves on without you, and the door that was open slowly locks shut. You've seen it before, haven't you? That voice inside that tells you, not now, maybe later. Oh, it sounds so reasonable, so protective, like it cares for your safety. But the truth, it doesn't care about your safety. It cares about your prison. It doesn't want you bruised, but it doesn't want you free either. So it convinces you to play it safe, to hide, to wait. And in the end, you realize all that waiting cost you more than any risk ever could. Fear takes no responsibility. It sits there grinning while you watch opportunities rot into dust. And you tell yourself, at least I didn't fail. But deep down, you know the truth. You did fail. Because you never tried. The cruel trick fear plays is convincing you that retreat is wisdom, that silence is strength, that inaction is protection. But wisdom without action is just cowardice in disguise. People love to say they're being careful. They're thinking it through. They're making the smart choice. But if you peel back the layers, most of the time they're just terrified. And terrified people don't make wise decisions. They make excuses. They'd rather call it patience than admit it's paralysis. They'd rather call it timing than confess they're too scared to move. And fear laughs, because it knows once you label it wisdom, you'll never question it again. You'll carry it like a shield, not realizing it's made of paper. And when the fire comes, you'll be the first to burn. Think about how many lives have been wasted this way. How many people stayed in jobs they hated because fear said, "It's stable, it's safe. Don't risk losing it." How many people stayed silent when they should have spoken because fear said, "Don't stir the waters, don't make enemies, just stay quiet." How many let love slip away because fear said, "You're not enough, they'll never choose you, better not to try." And every time, fear plays the same card. It pretends to protect you, but it's not protection. It's theft. It steals years, it steals dreams. It steals the fire in your bones until you're just another empty shell telling yourself you made the wise choice. Fear doesn't need to chain your hands. It doesn't need to lock your feet. All it needs is to whisper that staying still is safer than moving forward. And you believe it because you want to. Because safety is sweet, it feels warm. It feels like a blanket over your shaking body. But blankets smother, and safety suffocates, and before you realize it, you're buried alive under all the choices you never made. Fear is the graveyard of potential, and when you let it call itself wisdom, you dig the hole deeper with your own hands. The difference between fear and wisdom is simple. Wisdom pushes you to act, even if the risk is real. Fear stops you before the race even starts. Wisdom is aware of danger, but doesn't bow to it. Fear bows so low it never stands again. And people confuse them because fear knows how to mimic the sound of wisdom. It knows the words, it knows the tone, it knows exactly how to convince you that holding back is noble, that silence is strength, that hesitation is strategy. But if you're honest with yourself, brutally honest, you'll see it. You'll hear the quiver in its voice, the lie in its tone, the desperation in its eyes, and you'll know you've been tricked. The tragedy is most people never notice. They go through life holding on to their so-called wisdom, never realizing it was fear all along. They sit at the end of their days, staring at everything they didn't do, everything they didn't try, everything they let slip through their fingers, because they were too smart, too careful, too safe. And in that silence, when the years are gone, fear finally takes off its mask, and then it laughs because it knows it won. Comfort, that sweet little liar, whispers in your ear like a friend. It tells you you've earned it, that you deserve it, that there's no need to push, no need to fight, no need to chase the edge anymore. It dresses itself up as peace, as happiness, as security. But behind the curtain, it's the most dangerous enemy you'll ever face. Comfort doesn't stab you in the chest. It drains you slow, like poison slipping into your veins, making you too numb to notice what's slipping away. It pats you on the back, while it robs your future. People think comfort is the reward, but more often than not, it's the silent thief that steals the very destiny they were born for. You see it everywhere. People sink into routines, calling it stability, when really it's surrender. They stop taking risks because they've built a little bubble where nothing ever changes. And at first, it feels good, doesn't it? Safe, predictable, easy. But the price of easy is heavy. It kills your hunger, your ambition, your fire. And once that fire is gone, you're nothing but ashes pretending to still be alive. You call it peace, but it's just decay. You call it rest, but it's a coffin with cushions. Comfort convinces you there's no rush, that tomorrow will always be there. And that's the cruelest lie of them all. Because while you're busy waiting for the perfect time, time itself is bleeding out. Days, months, years. They slip through your fingers like sand while you're curled up in the arms of comfort, blind to the fact that every second is gone forever. Comfort never tells you that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. It just rocks you to sleep while your life slips away. And the worst part, you don't even realize you're losing. If someone stole your wallet, you'd fight. If someone burned your house, you'd scream. But when comfort steals your future, you smile and say thank you, because it feels good, it feels soft, it feels easy. You don't see the chains until it's too late. You don't hear the lock click until you're trapped. Comfort is the perfect prison, because you decorate the walls yourself. You convince yourself you want to stay, and you throw away the key with your own hand. Think about how many people live their entire lives this way. They dream big when they're young. They talk about changing the world, about breaking cycles, about building empires. But then comfort whispers, "You're fine here. Don't risk it. Don't fail. Don't step out of line." And slowly, dream by dream, they trade their fire for a chair in front of a glowing screen. Their ambition for a routine that never changes. They don't even notice it happening. By the time they wake up, years are gone, and the dreams are buried so deep they barely remember them. Comfort is a slow funeral, but the body is still breathing. You think you're safe in comfort, but really you're just avoiding growth. Growth requires pain. Growth requires discomfort, stretching, breaking old patterns, bleeding if you have to. And comfort hates that. It tells you, why struggle when you can stay here? But what it doesn't tell you is that staying means shrinking, decaying, rotting from the inside out. Comfort doesn't freeze time, it robs it. You don't stay the same when you stop moving. You get smaller, weaker, emptier. And comfort smiles while it happens, because it knows you'll never fight what feels good. The trap is that comfort looks harmless. It doesn't shout. It doesn't bite. It doesn't scare you. It just waits. It waits for you to stop running, stop fighting, stop stretching. And when you finally sit down, it wraps its arms around you and never lets go. You don't even realize the damage until one day you look back and wonder where all the years went. Wonder what happened to the fire in your chest. Wonder why you're still in the same place while the world has moved on. That's when you see it. The cozy little prison you built with your own hands. Comfort is the most seductive enemy because it makes you believe you're winning while you're actually losing everything. It doesn't strip you of your life all at once. It steals it in pieces quietly, gently, until there's nothing left but a shell smiling at the illusion of safety. And that's the tragedy. People don't wake up until it's too late, until the doors are locked, until all that's left is regret dressed up as wisdom. One ignored moment, that's all it takes. People think it's nothing, just a small choice, just a little delay, just one chance slipping through their fingers. They shrug it off like it doesn't matter. But the truth, that one skipped moment carries weight heavier than a lifetime. Because opportunities aren't single events, they're seeds. You plant one, it grows into a tree, and that tree gives shade, fruit, shelter. Ignore planting it, and you don't just lose the seed. You lose the entire forest that could have come from it. And the cruel part is, you never know how much you really lost. You just sit in the desert, thirsty, pretending it was never meant for you in the first place. Think about it. One ignored decision can set a chain in motion that you'll never reverse. You miss the meeting, you don't make the call. You stay quiet when you should have spoken. And in that moment, history changes. A future version of you dies before it even has a chance to exist. That version who would have been stronger, richer, freer, more alive. Gone, just like that, erased by hesitation. And you don't get to meet them, you don't get to become them. All because you skipped the moment that could have opened the door. It's funny how people downplay it. They tell themselves, "Oh, it's fine, another chance will come, life is full of opportunities." But no, life doesn't recycle the same doors. Once it's closed, it's gone. Sure, new doors appear, but not the same one. Not the one that was designed to lead exactly where you needed to go. That's why regret burns so deep. It's not just about what you lost. It's about knowing it was yours. It had your name on it, and you let it slip away because it looked too small, too risky, too early, too late. Excuses are the bricks, and regret is the wall. And people live behind that wall forever. The worst part is how quiet the loss is. When you mess up loudly, you know. When you crash, you feel it. But when you skip a chance, the damage doesn't scream. It whispers. It follows you in the shadows. You don't notice it right away. You just feel something missing. A weight in your chest. A nagging thought that something should have been different. And as time passes, that whisper grows louder, sharper, crueler, until you can't escape it. You start to replay the moment over and over, wondering what if, what if, what if. That's how people end up haunted. Not by what they did, but by what they didn't do. And you can't undo it. That's the tragedy. You can't go back and take the shot you refused. Can't open the door you ignored. Can't rewind the clock and grab the hand you let go of. Time is merciless. It doesn't wait for you to realize. It doesn't give you sympathy when you're finally ready. It just moves forward, dragging the lost moment behind it, out of reach forever. That's why one ignored moment can shatter everything. Because time doesn't forgive. People love to tell themselves they'll get another chance. That's the lie that keeps them comfortable. If it's meant to be, it'll come again. No, that's not how it works. Destiny isn't a patient teacher handing you the same test until you get it right. Skip the test, and you fail. And failure here doesn't mean embarrassment. It means erasure. It means you don't even get to see the life that could have been yours. And the scary part is, you'll never truly know what you missed. You'll just feel its absence like a ghost tugging at your soul. The chain reaction of one ignored moment is endless. Maybe that one yes would have introduced you to the right person, who would have opened the right door, who would have led you to the right place. Or maybe it would have built your strength, sharpened your skills, prepared you for the battles ahead. But now, all of it vanishes because you chose safety, you chose silence, you chose delay. You think you avoided failure, but really, you created it. You think you kept yourself safe, but really, you burned down the bridge to everything you wanted. That's the cruelty of ignoring a moment. It doesn't just take away what was in front of you. It takes away everything behind it, everything connected, everything that could have been. It's not just a door closed, it's a city destroyed. And you walk away pretending it was nothing, when deep inside you know it was everything. Sacrifice is a word people spit out like it's poison, but they don't realize it's the medicine. Everyone wants the reward, the glory, the breakthrough, but almost no one wants to bleed for it. They want the crown without the thorns, the fire without the burn, the victory without the scars. But life doesn't work that way. Everything worth keeping demands a cost. And the cost always comes first. If you're not willing to give something up now, you'll end up paying far more later. That's the twisted little law that never fails. You either sacrifice willingly or get sacrificed by the weight of regret. People think sacrifice means loss, but it's actually trade. You're giving up comfort, laziness excuses, small pleasures for something greater. You put down the crumbs so you can feast on the bread. But the trick is, in the moment, the crumbs look tempting. They're right in front of you, easy to grab, sweet to taste. And the bread, the real meal, it's further down the road, hidden by distance and struggle. So what do most people do? They grab the crumbs and starve later, all while convincing themselves they were clever for choosing the easy option. They don't see that small sacrifices now protect them from massive losses later. You skip discipline, you pay in wasted years. You skip hard work, you pay in a lifetime of mediocrity. You skip honesty, you pay in broken trust. You skip sacrifice, you pay with everything. That's the deal. There's no loophole, no shortcut, no way around it. Life demands the price. And it doesn't care if you cry about it. If you don't pay in advance, it comes to collect with interest, and the interest is brutal. That's why so many people end up broke in spirit, empty in purpose, bitter in their old age. They thought they were saving themselves from pain, but really they were stacking up debt they couldn't afford. Strange thing about traps. They don't rattle when you step near them. They stay quiet, dressed up like safety, disguised as comfort, hidden behind smiles and promises. And while you're busy convincing yourself you're fine, there's a voice screaming, louder than you can bear, telling you you're caught, telling you the walls are closing in, telling you the price of pretending is going to crush you. But people love to ignore the screams, don't they? Traps disguise themselves as comfort. That's the trick, isn't it? If a trap looked sharp, bloody, dangerous, you'd never walk near it. You'd turn around, you'd run, you'd fight. But when it looks soft, when it looks safe, when it looks like the very thing you've been craving, it pulls you in without resistance. That's the kind of cage people build their lives in. It doesn't feel like a cage at first. It feels like rest, like warmth, like reward. And before you even notice, the door has shut, the lock has turned. And the comfort you thought would save you becomes the very thing that suffocates you. Comfort, it's such a lovely lie. People think it means peace, but most of the time, it means surrender. The job that doesn't challenge you, but drains your soul. The relationship that doesn't grow you, but chains you with routine. The little habits you call coping, but are actually poison with a sweet aftertaste. It's all comfort. And comfort is the most patient trap in the world. It doesn't rush you. It lets you sit. It lets you laugh. It lets you pretend you're safe, while it wraps the ropes tighter, one loop at a time. You see, pain makes people move. Fire under the feet will get you running. Fear will make you fight. But comfort lulls you into stillness. It convinces you nothing needs to change. It whispers, stay. Don't push. Don't risk. And so you sink deeper and deeper, smiling as you're being swallowed alive. That's why it's more dangerous than any obvious enemy. You see an enemy, you fight. You feel the knife, you react. But when the knife is replaced by a soft pillow, you don't even notice it pressing down on your throat. And isn't it funny how people defend their own traps? Try to wake someone up from their comfort, and they'll hate you for it. Tell them their job is killing them. Their habits are destroying them. They're so-called safe. Choices are chaining them, and they'll laugh in your face. They'll call you dramatic, negative, crazy. Because deep down, they know you're right. They just don't want to admit it. Comfort makes cowards out of people. It makes them choose the slow death over the bloody battle. It makes them protect the cage instead of breaking it open. Every trap has bait. That's the rule. And comfort is the bait most people fall for. Money, security, approval, attention, whatever form it takes. It's always just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to set you free. You'll notice that the people who scream the loudest about how happy they are in their comfort are often the ones most afraid to be left alone with their thoughts, because silence would show them the truth. Silence would strip the disguise and reveal the bars they've been sitting behind for years. And the worst part, the longer you stay in the comfort trap, the harder it is to get out. Your muscles weaken, your hunger dies, your fire fades. You become addicted to the very thing that's draining you. It feels impossible to escape, because you've forgotten what struggle feels like, what risk feels like, what life feels like. That's the brilliance of the trap. It convinces you you're choosing it, when really, it's already chosen you. The voice screaming, wake up, isn't trying to ruin your comfort. It's trying to save you from it. Because comfort never stays soft forever. It turns sharp. It turns rotten. The sweetness fades and leaves only chains. And by the time most people realize it, they're too weak, too scared, too trapped to fight back. Comfort never intended to keep you safe. It only wanted you still, silent, easy to control. And the ones who ignore the warning will always learn too late that the bed they rested on was just the cage in disguise. The warning voice grows louder when ignored. That's how it always works. The first time, it's just a whisper, a nudge, a little discomfort you brush off, telling yourself it's nothing. Maybe it's the sinking feeling you get when you walk into that job you hate. Maybe it's the silence in the room with someone you know you don't belong with. Maybe it's the gnawing ache in your chest when you lie down at night, knowing you're not living the life you were meant to. That's the warning, soft, gentle, almost kind. But people love to ignore it. They drown it out with noise, with distractions, with excuses. They act like if they don't listen, the voice will disappear. It never does. It just gets louder. And the louder it gets, the more violent it feels. Because warnings aren't meant to be polite forever. They're designed to wake you up. The longer you stay asleep, the more force it takes to shake you. That's when life starts ripping things away. The job collapses, the relationship shatters, the health fails, the peace burns to ash, and people scream, "Why is this happening to me?" As if the voice hadn't been warning them for years. They confuse disaster with punishment when it's really just desperation. The voice clawing its way into their reality because whispers weren't enough. You see, the trap never stays quiet forever. At first, it wants you comfortable, unaware. But once the warning comes, once the truth begins to crack through the disguise, the trap gets nervous. And that's when the tension starts. You feel it in your bones, like something's off. But instead of facing it, you pour another drink, scroll another hour, fake another smile. You turn up the volume of the world to mute the sound of the warning. And it works. For a while. Until the silence returns, louder than before, impossible to ignore. Echoing in your head until it drowns out everything else. Ignoring the warning doesn't erase it. It multiplies it. Like a dripping faucet in the dead of night, at first, it's just an annoyance. But the more you try to pretend it's not there, the more it eats at your mind. Drip, drip, until it's the only thing you can hear, the only thing you can think about. That's the voice when you ignore it. It doesn't fade. It doesn't vanish. It grows into something that shakes your world until you finally look it in the eye. People love to say they didn't know or didn't see it coming. But the truth, they knew. They heard it. They felt it. They just didn't want to deal with it. Because dealing with it means change. And change is messy, scary, uncertain. So they let the warning grow louder, thinking they were buying time, when really, they were letting the clock run out. By the time they finally admit the voice was right, the damage is already done. The trap has already snapped shut, and the escape costs more than it ever should have. The voice isn't your enemy. It's your last ally in a world designed to trick you. That's why it screams when you ignore it. It knows what's coming if you don't listen. But people treat it like background noise, like static, like an inconvenience. They don't realize it's the only thing standing between them and destruction. They'd rather trust the glittering lies around them than the piercing truth inside them. And that choice is always the beginning of the end. Every time you ignore the warning, you hand the trap another piece of yourself. A little more freedom, a little more strength, a little more hope. Until finally, the voice isn't warning you anymore. It's begging you. And even then, most people stuff their ears, pretending not to hear the cry that was meant to save them. The voice doesn't grow louder because it loves the sound of itself. It grows louder because it knows the clock is ticking. The walls are closing, and soon the choice won't be yours anymore. Distractions numb the truth, but never erase it. That's the trick most people play with themselves. They know something is wrong. They feel it gnawing at the back of their skull, clawing at the edge of their heart. But instead of facing it, they drown it. Music so loud it rattles the bones. Endless scrolling until the eyes blur. Food, drinks, laughs, fake smiles. Anything to make the silence stop echoing. And for a moment it works. For a moment, the truth feels far away, buried under noise. But here's the problem: the truth doesn't die. It waits. You can cover a wound with bandages, with perfume, with 1,000 pretty distractions. But if you don't treat it, it rots. That's what happens to people who live in distraction. Their souls rot quietly, behind the noise, behind the shows, behind the endless business they mistake for life. They keep running from the silence because they're terrified of what it might say. And the silence, oh, it's patient. It doesn't need to chase. It knows one day the noise will stop. And when it does, the truth will still be there, uglier and louder than ever. Distractions are clever because they don't feel like poison. They feel like relief. They feel like safety. That's why they're so effective. Nobody sits there and says, "I'll destroy myself today." No, they say, "I'll just relax, just one more drink, just one more episode, just one more night pretending everything's fine." But that's how traps are built. Slowly, quietly, through small comforts stacked on top of each other until the weight becomes chains. People bury themselves in distraction until they forget they're the ones who dug the hole. The truth can't be erased because it's not a thought, it's reality. And reality doesn't care if you're looking at it. A fire keeps burning whether or not you close your eyes. A storm keeps coming whether or not you hide under the blanket. The trap doesn't vanish because you distract yourself. It just grows while you're not watching. That's the danger. You think you're escaping, but really, you're giving it more room to grow teeth. And the worst part, distractions make you weaker. They dull your instincts. They soften your edge. You stop paying attention to the little signs, the whispers, the cracks in the walls, because you've trained yourself not to look. By the time you finally try to face it, you're not sharp anymore. You're sluggish, numb, too tired to fight. That's when the trap loves you most. When you've wasted all your energy hiding from it. Look around and you'll see it everywhere. People who can't sit in silence without reaching for something to fill it. People who avoid mirrors, who avoid questions, who avoid anything that forces them to face what's inside. They're not living. They're numbing. They call it fun. They call it rest. They call it normal. But deep down, they know it's an escape. And every escape has a price. The truth doesn't disappear just because you don't look at it. It waits behind every laugh, every distraction, every moment of fake peace. And when the noise fades, when the party ends, when the phone battery dies, the truth is still there, staring, sharper than before. That's why distractions never save you. They only delay the inevitable. They make the crash harder when it comes. They make the silence unbearable when it finally arrives. People believe they're clever, hiding from the voice, burying themselves in endless noise. But the truth doesn't need to chase them. It doesn't need to rush. It just waits. And the longer they ignore it, the stronger it gets, the deeper it cuts, the heavier it falls when it finally breaks through. Distractions numb the pain, yes, but pain numbed is still pain alive. And the truth you run from will always be the truth you crash into, harder, louder, unstoppable. Denial feeds the chains that hold you. That's the cruel beauty of it. People think denial is protection, a way to stay safe from pain, but really it's the very thing tightening the lock. The moment you refuse to see the truth, you've already handed it power over you. You've chosen blindness, and blindness is the perfect leash. Because the trap doesn't need to fight you if you won't even admit it exists. You'll sit inside it, convinced you're free, while the walls close in inch by inch, until freedom isn't even a word you remember anymore. Denial isn't silence, it's noise. It's the excuses you tell yourself when something feels off. It's not that bad. I can handle it. Everyone goes through this. That's denial disguised as logic. You paint over cracks with cheap words, thinking the wall will stand, while deep down you know it's crumbling. And every excuse is another link in the chain. Every "it's fine" is another knot around your throat. You think you're dodging the truth, but all you're really doing is binding yourself tighter to the very thing you fear. The trap loves denial. It feeds on it, grows fat from it, becomes invisible because of it. You can't fight what you refuse to see. And so you laugh when the warning comes. You roll your eyes when the signs flash. You bury your face in comfort, thinking you've won because you feel calm. But calm isn't freedom. Calm in denial is sedation. It's the drug they give you before the knife cuts. It's the quiet before the blade drops. People love denial because it makes them feel in control. Admit the truth, and you might have to change. You might have to fight. You might have to tear your own world apart. But deny it, and you get to stay still. No movement, no responsibility, no risk. Just chains that feel like routine. A cage that feels like home. That's the sickest part. It convinces you to decorate your prison, to polish the bars, to pretend the key was never real. Denial whispers that you're fine when you're dying. It tells you the trap is normal, that everyone lives like this, that you should be grateful for what you have. And you believe it because the truth is uglier. The truth would shatter your illusions, would demand you rip yourself away from everything you've clung to. So you feed yourself denial like candy, sweet on the tongue but rotting the bones. You trade freedom for comfort, awareness for illusion, and all the while, the trap tightens. The chain doesn't need to be heavy if you convince yourself it's jewelry. That's how denial works. You wear it with pride. You call it choice. You call it strength. You call it maturity. But deep inside, you know the weight pressing down isn't something you chose. It's something you're too afraid to face. And the longer you lie, the deeper it digs. Denial is never harmless. It always comes with a cost, and the cost is always freedom. And when the moment comes, the moment the trap finally snaps, you'll look back and realize you saw it all along. Every sign, every whisper, every warning. You weren't blind. You chose blindness. You weren't fooled. You fooled yourself. That's the darkest truth about denial. It isn't ignorance, it's betrayal. A betrayal of yourself, of the voice that begged you to wake up, of the life that could have been yours. And betrayal always leaves scars deeper than chains. Denial feeds the chains, makes them stronger, makes them unbreakable. Not because the chains were invincible, but because you gave them power with your silence. You kept them alive with every excuse, every lie, every refusal to see. And by the time you finally admit the truth, the chains aren't just around you. They're inside you. They've become part of who you are. And tearing them out will cost more than you ever imagined. Awareness is the first step to breaking free. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Just open your eyes. Just admit what's right in front of you. But that's the hardest thing for most people. Not because they can't see, but because they don't want to. Awareness demands the death of illusions. And people cling to illusions like lifeboats in the middle of the ocean. They'd rather hold on to the lie that's sinking them than risk the cold truth that might actually save them. But until you see the trap for what it is, you'll never escape it. You'll decorate it, justify it, defend it, but you'll never leave it. Awareness cuts. It doesn't stroke your ego. It doesn't comfort your fears. It carves through the layers of excuses you've built, the fake smiles, the carefully painted walls. And it hurts. That's why people avoid it. They'd rather stay numb in denial than bleed through the truth. But awareness doesn't care about your comfort. It cares about clarity, and clarity is sharp, merciless, stripping away everything soft and sweet until all that's left is the raw skeleton of reality. That's the moment you either crumble or rise. Most people think they'll be ready when awareness comes. They imagine themselves brave, strong, ready to face anything. But awareness rarely arrives politely. It kicks down the door. It shows you the betrayal, the trap, the chain you've been polishing like a trophy. It shows you that the safe life you built was really a cage. It shows you that the people you trusted fed the poison you swallowed willingly. And suddenly, the ground falls out from under you. That's awareness. It's chaos before freedom, death before rebirth. The first step is always seeing the job that drains your soul instead of feeds it. Seeing the relationship that cages your heart instead of frees it. Seeing the habits you call coping, but are really chains in disguise. Seeing the truth you've avoided for so long because you were too scared of the cost. That's why awareness feels like a burn. It doesn't let you unsee. Once the curtain drops, you can't pretend the play is real anymore. And that's terrifying, because now you have to decide, live blind or live free. Awareness doesn't hand you freedom. It hands you responsibility. It says, now you know. What will you do about it? And that question haunts people. Because as long as you stay blind, you can blame the world. You can say you didn't know, that you were tricked, that it wasn't your fault. But once you're aware, you lose that excuse. The chains are still there, but now you see them. And if you stay, it's not the trap holding you. It's you holding the trap. That realization breaks people, because it leaves no one left to blame. The irony is, awareness doesn't make the chains stronger. It makes them weaker. A chain you can see is a chain you can break. A cage you admit exists is a cage you can escape. Awareness shines a light on the very lies that kept you trapped. And the moment you face them, they begin to lose their grip. But that's not what most people feel at first. At first, all they feel is the pain of knowing they've wasted years in the dark. That grief keeps them frozen. They cry for the lost time, for the wasted energy, for the illusion they built their life around. But freedom doesn't care about the past. It only cares about what you do with the truth right now. Awareness is ugly. It shows you the worst about yourself and the world. It strips away the fantasies, the excuses, the comfortable lies. But without it, you're just another prisoner pretending the bars are part of the design. Awareness may be the first step, but it's the one that costs the most. Because once you see, you can't go back. Once you know, ignorance is dead. And once ignorance is dead, you either rise into freedom or rot in chains you now recognize.